Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Clarisse Fortuny. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines across the continent. Fierce fighting is still raging in the DR Congo, as the military authorities say they had recaptured several villages from the M23 in Masisi territory in North Kivu. Rescuers continue to pull body bags and survivors from the South African mine of Stilfontein. Hundreds more are still believed to be underground. Brand new with old stuff. We'll meet an Ugandan designer who's giving used denim a second life, a fashionable way to limit the negative impact of fast fashion. But we start in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where fierce fighting is still raging between the army and M23 rebels, fighting particularly in the Masisi and Lubero areas of North Kivu. The Congolese army says it has launched a counteroffensive after the M23 captured the strategic town of Masisi. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa reports.
The already dire security situation in eastern Congo has taken a turn for the worse in the past several days, with fierce combat pitting Congolese troops against M23 rebels. The M23 launched a rebellion in late 2021 and captured swathes of North Kivu province. Thousands of soldiers from neighbouring Rwanda operate in North Kivu in support of the group, according to UN experts. A ceasefire had been in place since August. However, it broke down after peace talks between Congo and Rwanda collapsed in December. According to humanitarians and Congolese officials on the ground, fighting is now back in full swing, particularly in the Masisi and Lubero areas of North Kivu. The Congolese army says it has launched a counteroffensive after the M23 captured territory. The UN says that 100,000 people have been displaced in Masisi alone since January, joining nearly 3 million people forced from their homes across North Kivu. Tensions related to the conflict are rising. This week, the Congolese government suspended the news network Al Jazeera for 90 days after it broadcast an interview of the leader of the M23. The Congolese Justice Minister, Constant Mutamba, also stated last week that anyone relaying Rwandan army or M23 talking points could face the death penalty.
And now to South Africa, where efforts are on the way to pull up scores of illegal miners from a gold mine in Stilfontein. 36 bodies have been lifted over 2 days. Last week, a court ordered the government to facilitate a rescue operation after it had initially cut off supplies. Rescuers brought dozens of bodies and emaciated survivors to the surface this Tuesday, with hundreds more still believed to be underground, many of them dead and others too weak to come out on their own. Let's listen to some reactions.
Concern. We are here to lay a charge, and that is a charge of a mass murder of these miners.
The situation is very, very bad. People are sick and people, they want to come out. And then there are a lot of dead bodies.
We had to go to court for them to bring the rescue team. So there's nothing to be happy about, but at least those loved ones who have lost their family members, at least they'll be able to bury them. It's already Marikana. It's already Stilfontein massacre. Because remember, in Marikana it was 30-something. Here already we are sitting in 100 and something. So something that never happened in South Africa. So yeah, it's not next Marikana. It's Stilfontein massacre.
And now this update from Uganda on Kizza Besigye. The opposition leader can now be tried on a charge of treachery, according to a new Ugandan military ruling. And if convicted, he could face the death penalty. Besigye went missing in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, on November 16. Days later, he and a co-accused appeared before a military court in Kampala. Kizza Besigye, who's also charged with illegal possession of a firearm and of attempting to destabilize national security, denies the charges. Amnesty International is calling for his release. Mpox is back in the news, this time in Sierra Leone. A public health emergency was declared after 3 cases were detected in the past 4 days, nearly a decade after the devastating Ebola epidemic, which claimed thousands of lives. Sierra Leone has bolstered its health systems to combat emerging diseases, but the country still faces many challenges. Caitlin Kelly, our regional correspondent, has been speaking to those involved in the response.
The third case of Mpox has been detected in Sierra Leone after the government declared a national public health emergency late on Monday. The first case was found last week in the West African nation, while continent-wide the smallpox-related disease has infected over 40,000 people in the past year and killed over 1,000. When I spoke to UN officials this morning, they said that this declaration, which is in line with international health standards, now means that Sierra Leone can access more support, more resources, implement more measures, and also receive closer monitoring from the World Health Organization. Speaking to the government officials, they said that they've been upping preparedness efforts since last August, when the Mpox disease was declared a global emergency. In recent months, they've been on higher alert given the cases in Liberia and Guinea, but now they are intensifying efforts when it comes to surveillance and also collaboration with their neighbours.
We are making sure that we do contact tracing for all the cases that have been identified. 2, we want to see if we can actually look at the health centers, visit both public and private health centers, review their records, look at the cases that are coming there, and then we actually expand our testing capacity. And then the third one is to make sure that community engagement is intensified.
Encouraging people to remain vigilant, wash hands, and also call 117, the health services, if they experience any symptoms like high fever or lesions. Freetown say that they've learnt the hard lessons from the Ebola epidemic, which killed over 4,000 people a decade ago.
For several weeks, frequent tremors, including one measuring 5.8 on the Richter scale, have been shaking the rural regions of Afar and Oromia in central Ethiopia. At least 60,000 people had to be evacuated, but humanitarian response is lagging behind. More on this with Laurent Bersecher.
In the arid plains of central Ethiopia, a few makeshift tents are laid out among the bushes. They provide shelter for hundreds of families displaced by a series of earthquakes that have struck the country in recent weeks. Many had to leave their homes in a panic and left all their belongings behind.
I left with my elderly mother and my children. We had no time to bring anything with us. It was a natural disaster. We had to run for our lives.
The Ethiopian states of Afar and Oromia have been shaken by dozens of powerful earthquakes in the past month. The two states are located along the Rift Valley, one of the most seismically active regions in the world, but experts say the latest quakes were the most intense in at least 10 years. Fearing the collapse of the newly built Renaissance Dam, Ethiopian authorities evacuated over 60,000 people since December. Many ended up in overcrowded camps where resources are often lacking, despite frequent aid deliveries.
They are providing us with food, but there are many people here, and it's not enough. This is a dusty and dry area, and we don't have enough water.
As they wait for the support of international aid agencies, local authorities set up a makeshift clinic next to the camp. But here, too, there's not enough qualified personnel to care for the hundreds of patients who come every day to seek treatment.
Tunisians were in the streets of the capital Tunis this Tuesday calling for the release of jailed political figures as they marked the 14th anniversary of the uprising that sparked the Arab Spring rebels across the region. Youth associations were also in the streets reclaiming the gains of the revolution, accusing current President Kais Saied of an authoritarian drift. Human Rights Watch say more than 170 people are detained in Tunisia on charges with political motives. Ghana's new president, John Mahama, today made a visit to the country's troubled northeastern border with Burkina Faso. Thousands have fled the area in the last 3 years after Islamist insurgents in Burkina Faso worsened years of ethnic violence between members of the Kusasi and Mamprusi ethnic groups. Our Ghana correspondent, Justice Baidu, has more.
This was Mr. John Mahama's first official assignment outside Accra, the country's capital. His party had campaigned heavily on bringing peace and stability to the country's northeastern region, where more than 41 people have so far died from ethnic clashes since October 2024. The country's security has been threatened since 2022 because of the influx of refugees who are fleeing insurgency attacks in neighboring Burkina Faso. Mr. Mahama says he's now putting together a crack team of security heads who would now have a deliberate focus on the area.
We cannot live in a country where our people don't feel safe. Our people must feel safe to travel wherever they want at whatever time and not have people shooting at them. And so you can be sure that we'll deal with all these situations.
More than 15,000 persons have so far crossed the border between Burkina Faso and Ghana. Since 2022, Sahelian countries have been battling insurgency attacks that have escalated now, influencing coup d'etats in countries like Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
Justice Baidu reporting there from Accra. A word of sports with this change in a calendar. The African Nations Championship will no longer take place next month. It's been postponed to August this year. The Confederation of African Football said it needed more time. The CHAN draw is scheduled for Wednesday, 15th January of this month in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. A Ugandan designer and entrepreneur is giving second-hand pieces a second life. Used clothes is a huge business in the country, with millions of pieces weighing in at around 80,000 tons being stripped in from Europe every year. Troy Elise-Moose been working to make some to go even further on a journey of transformation.
In the packed and narrow streets of Owino Market in downtown Kampala, a group of young people sift through a pile of used denim. They select the best pieces and bring them to their employer, fashion designer Troy Elimu, who makes and sells upcycled clothing.
We're trying to protect our environment and using sustainable material. So we try and reuse denim, denim that has been thrown or put to waste. It's not just repurposing denim, but we're trying to add on art, DTF printing. So it's repurposing denim to an upper scale.
Uganda imports 80,000 tons of second-hand clothes each year, which are generally purchased to be worn as is. Elimu is now hoping to revolutionize the industry with his approach, selecting old pieces of denim to add them onto existing clothes in order to create brand new and trendy garments. And his products already have their share of admirers.
I love the authenticity about the products here. I love the creativity. I believe they really think out of the box.
For the longest time in our country was settling for whatever trash we got from outside countries. But now with people like Troy and many others of his kind here at Motive and all over the place, they're creating for us affordable clothing that will basically wipe out the second-hand stuff.
Troy Elimu recently began exporting his creations outside of Uganda, a way to flip the script and to sell back clothes to the same countries which discarded them in the first place.
Sustainable fashion to conclude our edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching.